any future retirees by amending the employee handbook and eliminate the health reimbursement agreement. During the next budgeting cycle and health insurance enrollment, review cost savings of employer-employee cost sharing, limit spending on essential city services is directed by city council. Assets, permit fee analysis is ongoing. Water sewer rate study presentation is tentatively scheduled for February 28, 2013, and that has been confirmed, correct?
Correct.
Both these increased revenue recommendations ensure adequate revenues are being collected to maintain our current expenditures as well as collect for future expense related to our current infrastructure. Additional revenue sources currently being sought are the sale of effluent water and the reduction of disposal fee for water, wastewater treatment plant sludge. Potential revenue from effluent water sale is approximately $276,000 to $300,000, and the cost savings of the sludge disposal is $138,000. In the 2013-2014 budget workshop, enact multi-year zero-based budgeting practices and consider property tax increase if warranted. One of the issues that we discussed at the city manager's clinic was specifically that this is a hot topic throughout the community. Anybody that is within the Eagle Ford Shell or other shells are doing this specifically, and we have been fortunate that the hardest part for us has been completed, and that was permitting through TCEQ. We have received that. We are in a contract with Alpha Technologies, and for this committee's information, they are having on Friday. At what time?
From noon to 2 at Karn City. They're opening their first plant where they are purchasing wastewater. They've got their plant set up. We are slated potentially to be the second plant to open. So they're going to be opening, we can go out and do the tour of that plant.
Number 4, staff recommendations. According to bond counsel, financial advisors, and 4 attorneys, the wishes of city council, possibly privatization or partial privatization of center will be sought. Currently, the 4 board is reviewing run-on concession rates and will increase accordingly with the advice of staff, and ultimately the approval of the city council. I know that the 4A meeting, their workshop is specifically on rates. Is that correct, right? The 4A portion of debt will have to be refinanced. In preparation, factors that need to be considered the city's ability to obtain credit, the center's ability to generate revenue, and the marketability of the town as a whole. Negative publicity must be avoided, and a group effort must be the focus. Staff recommendations, number 5, in speaking with auditors, a clean audit with a footnote of the city's current financial conditions and an attachment of our action plan is within reach. The firm is well aware of the adversities we faced and the steps that are being taken to remedy the situation. The committee's focus must be on completing the written plan by the end of February so that it will be included in the audit report to the city council in March. And speaking with the auditors, hard numbers are not required in the plan because of the potential fluctuation in cost of goods and services. A well-rounded plan to correct liability exceeding assets situation is sufficient. 6, staff recommendation. Since water and sewer rate study presentation is tentatively scheduled for February 28, 2013, and the discrepancies do not affect the base rate, but more so the tier portion of the billing. Staff recommends one complete rate change and not 2 separate ones to correct the matter. That's specifically the work that was done by the financial advisors, and specifically when the dates were worked on due to the holiday, due to prior commitments. That was the earliest we could get that to staff to be able to prepare and review and compile and present to this committee. I did speak again, like I said, with the auditor today. Told her about the March meetings, the dates, the 7th, the 14th and the 28th. She was shooting for the 28th, possibly later, depending on where she is right now. And her words were, we see that you're working, we just need the plan to be approved, whatever plan it is, by the council. That's the only way that it holds any weight in our planning for the future and our corrective measures for the audits. And
A little clarification, if you don't mind.
yes, sir.
And obviously, we've got a significant amount of work to do to complete this plan if we're going to put in accomplish where we need to be, and if we're going to put in metrics for measurement. That's not going to be accomplished in this meeting today.
That's correct.
So we are probably looking at council approval based on the last council directive, would be March 28th. How will that impact it? Was your statement about her looking at March 28th or possibly later, dependent upon our plan to council?
No, it's depending on her work schedule and prior commitments that she has, because they constantly do other audits that may take them more, may take them less, and they still have to work on the 4Bs portion, because she likes to include all of it, 4A, 4B in the city, correct?
Yeah, and they've not finished, it's not complete, so the MD&A cannot be completed until all that, so.
Well, the point of my question is, if we cannot get a plan to council and approval until March 28th, how is this going to impact us? Or will it? Or would it be wise to advise the auditor that the work is ongoing and the finalizations are being put in place? Obviously, the rate study piece of this is going to have, need to be a part of this.
Yes.
That it is our intentions to have this plan completed, formalized, presented to council for March 28th approval. Would it be wise to advise the auditor of that?
Yes. Yes. The purpose of periodic contact with the auditors specifically for that, to let them know where we are on the planning, what we've done so far, what the committee foresees, and tomorrow's first phone call will be specifically to the auditor to say, this is what we're potentially looking at to complete the work. This is in addition to what the staff recommendations have been and sent off to do. We can specifically say this is what occurred at last night's audit committee, and this is what we're looking at, and give them a brief, and I can report back.
Before we go on to that, is that a reasonable consensus of this committee that we can, based upon the format that the city manager has presented, based on the timelines of information that we have been getting, is that something that this committee believes is doable by March 28th? Can we as a committee at least have a consensus to commit to that goal? So if the city manager gets on the phone to tell the auditor this is the direction we're working, I think that would be wise. Is there any other? I don't want to make the decision for the committee, you know, or even direct the city manager to do that, and that there are other members of this committee.
Do you think it'd be feasible, you know,
I think now
from the
that
staff?
the majority of the information that was being that we were waiting on from outside sources has come in. Unless other requests go out, that we're waiting on information coming in.
The specific to what the councilman stating is the rate study, and that presentation plus the implementation of possibly that is gonna have a bearing on what needs to be included in addition.
But again, they don't require, it's not requiring dollars. So the fact that we know we're gonna be doing the rate study, that's in here and that's coming,
What is
so.
it, and thank you for adding that, one of the issues stated on the fourth document, and I know you will be intrigued by reading it as to the similarities. Is that specifically what is stated on their document, that the turnaround work plan is a working document that will be used by the steering committee, see monitoring turnaround plan progress for description of this group, to manage the process of achieving a turnaround. We will have to update and modify as time goes by, because it will be a working document.
If we come back to, and I don't want to step on your presentation, Ms. Fagan, I think we clearly have the issues that our plan needs to address. And that, and you've spelled them out or highlighted many of them. The key one being monitoring, okay? The second big key piece to this is gonna be budgeting, and that finance budget process that we have identified. And yeah, that is a fluid process, meaning, per your contract, per the charter, for much discussion of this committee and the council is, and that the recommendations of our comptroller require regular revision. There's no doubt about that. A couple of key pieces to this, or at least preliminary numbers, that I believe should be included in there. Recognizing that this is a fluid document, is that rate study, and the impact that those fees will have to the various funds of the city when the city enacts these things, or if the city council enacts those changes. And I think that will have a huge impact into it, as will the budgeting cycle, as will the monitoring process that we put in. Still outstanding in this presentation, and it's a wealth of information, and I may, in rereading it, find the answer to the question that I'm asking. Is clearly the auditor raised the question of debt service, okay? And we must have an idea, a ballpark figure, an estimate of what it is going to cost to refinance this debt. Otherwise, okay, whatever budgetary methods we put in place, whatever planning methods we put in place, okay, to suddenly be hit with an unexpected, large, unexpected number, okay, in payment or in cost to that, could have detrimental effects. So, to simply state that, yeah, we're gonna consider refinancing it, recognizing that we may not be able to get the bond insurance to get the AAA rating, or that we may not have the distribution that we have, or that we may have a higher rate, to me, I don't think is an adequate response to it. Now, that's just me, but I've asked the question, and I believe it is critical to know, are we going to be able to refinance? And if we are, okay, and in looking at, as you presented today, that was even projected in 2010 to begin as early as September of 2014 or 2013, 2014. Okay, would it be beneficial to do it then? Do we have, what are the recommendations based upon the potential cost to us, so that we can be planning in a multi-year budget cycle for those expenses? Because clearly, the 4A corporation is not going to be able to foot that debt. Or maybe they are. But until we know what those numbers are, I believe that they need to be included. Okay? All of that being said, I think we've got a wealth of information to consider and a lot more detail to add to this plan.
Can I ask you what, when you say cost to that debt, just so I can understand what you're asking? Are you meaning just what the debt payments would be?
No,
or
ma'am.
What is, so that's what I'm trying to make sure I understand what
When-
you're asking about.
When the debt service, when the 2009, 2008 series, whatever, the last refinancing of the events.
2010.
2010. Above and beyond the cost of the loan, the interest rate, there were fees paid to, and there were the cost of the insurance. Combined, we looked at about $1 million of cost, okay?
Okay.
And
that's
those
what
are
I
the
was
costs
wanting to
that
make
I'm
sure.
looking
And
at.
that would, as always is in refinancing, that's rolled in with the new debt the refinancing, so it wouldn't be the cost of the bond attorneys or the financial advisors that work on it, would not be a specific item that hits a general fund.
Well-
It's put it, and that's why I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what you were
Yeah.
asking. There are costs, I'm not saying there's not gonna be costs associated to those providers.
And
In
when-
addition to the debt payment itself, that is rolled into it and you pay it with additional debt.
It's financed into the loan for simple
So it would
people.
not be on this directly the line item in the general fund.
Agreed,
Just want to make sure
but,
that I was understanding.
but that expense and that payment, okay, if the payment of that debt, whatever the payment turns out to be, the principal and interest on that debt, whether we finance into that debt the costs of the bond counselors and the insurance and that sort of stuff, okay, is ultimately a responsibility of the general fund, should the 4A be unable to make those payments, in that it is guaranteed with ad valorem taxes, okay? Or it is a, let me rephrase that, it may not be a liability to the general fund, it is a liability to the city, as it is secured with ad valorem taxes. So knowing what that payment would be is critical in planning, because if that payment is greater than the revenue sources of the 4A, then that excess liability comes to the city. Hence my questions of what is it going to cost us to do that, because any bond fees or insurance fees adding into the debt will increase the debt service payment on it. And that's my question. Maybe the terminology
So I
wasn't,
just wanted to make sure, that's what I wanted to make sure, what you were asking, what you were including, just so we could understand, or I could understand.
so,
And the financial advisors had brought us, when I first got here, numbers for the refinancing prior to some of this. So those numbers are probably going to will be modified if we ask them to redo it now. Again, they're making assumptions on interest rates in 2014. I believe it was 2014 is when they had it. So they will be getting that information to us, that will be coming. Again, so that is something.
For the time being, I mean, the only thing that's being asked to be presented to council is something vague, correct? And it's, you know, again, dollars, something vague enough to say, okay, this is, we're gonna be implementing this, and this. And then in turn, be part of the audit committee after the fact that it's already been, or part of the council in order to enact on what was being, I guess, brought up.
Councilman, I actually disagree that what our response does not need to be vague.
Well, it's a-
Okay, our response needs to be
In order
very,
to get back to the auditor is what I'm trying to get at.
again, our response to the auditor may not be able to be specific to say, where are we going to be in 36 months, because nobody can predict the future, okay? But needs to be specific that says, these are the internal controls that we are going to put in place, okay, to ensure monitoring, to ensure the budget, or current finance budget processes, be those internal controls staff, policy, or procedures. Now, what is going to be the overall dollar impact of those internal controls? Nobody can predict. But to say that for monitoring, okay, and just as an example, okay, part of that action is in the council directive. It is in the city charter, it is in our city manager's contract, okay, to say that for monitoring, that the day-to-day monitoring of the financial condition of the city is the responsibility of the city manager. That's clearly stated in the charter. That monthly reports will be provided to the council that are reflective of actual amounts compared to what was budgeted, which is in place now.
But is that, what I'm trying to get at, is that part of the audit committee? Is it part of what the auditor is needing from us? Is it part of what needs to be presented to council? We can always work out the details of what's being, what's being outlined.
Well,
But, you know, we're here trading wheels, and we need to get something.
but I don't think we are spinning our wheels. I think we've made a great deal of progress, okay?
I haven't seen anything.
Well, I think it's based on the information that we have here. Let's.
Well, it's obvious that he's making an effort, you know, the staff is making an effort, okay? So let's try to add on to the turnaround plan or whatever plan we're gonna be bringing up to council to keep it to where this is what we need to implement. This is what we need to come up with. If we need to revamp the budget, if we need to, you know, whatever we need to get at. I think, you know, we need to get on what we're here for.
Well, I think that we've identified the areas that need to be addressed,
We know the problem already.
okay? The city staff has included recommendations on how to deal with them,
Okay.
okay? Now the question becomes, how do we implement and how do we measure?
Well, let's do it.
Well, I'm asking the question.
Do we, can we modify the existing budget? Is a question that I have. The budget that was approved.
Yes,
Or
but that's not what the auditors are.
they're asking for
What
last
the
year's.
committee need, yeah, they're,
For-
well, the
for the
committee,
future.
the auditors are looking for the insolvency plan, which, as, again, probably some of the things when you start reading it a little bit more, reading through
Mhm.
Fort Stockton, how it talks about, yeah, you're gonna be affecting line items such as revenue and expenses. So yes, that, in the end, yes, that will be one of the things will happen. We will have budget amendments, whether they be to cut back
Whatever they
expenses,
may be.
or maybe freeze positions, not necessarily eliminate them. Fort Stockton mentioned eliminating them. But we didn't talk, we talked about freezing them versus eliminating. So there's, but again, it's just the plan. That's what the auditors need, is just this plan with, which is a start. This was a start, and this is
Yeah,
a start.
exactly.
All we did, all Amy mentioned was that this is a start for y'all to start, as well as us, add things, if you think of other things, we can get this pulled together to present to council.
That would be my question, is that if this is a skeletal outline, do you have the staff to take the information that you have and actually do the input into that outline to make it to where it's a viable plan? You know that you've already identified off of your planning document those positions and a cost to it. Until you get the rate survey back in, you've got no clue. It's
Well, again,
like to go back to what
Yeah,
you
they're
had
not
asked.
looking for dollars. The auditors aren't asking that we're gonna make $1 million on revenue. I mean, that's, they very clearly mentioned that they wanted the plan is the fact that we are implementing a rate study.
Well, even
The
to
fact
input
that
that
we are-
information though, that data is gonna be made available at the city council meeting on the 28th.
So all we
Then
have
you
to
can
do-
fill, then you can
So
fill,
all we have to
that-
do-
Yeah, so it
that's
doesn't
the
have to be
things that I
done.
see.
Yeah, and it's in the document that he's coming on the 28th to make a
It
presentation.
may
So all
not,
we have
they
to
may
do
not
is say
happen
that
on the
we're-
28th, but
that
as long
we're
as we are
going-
working towards those goals.
Exactly.
The other thing I would think to do, that items of action that you're doing is to prevent any further reduction in your credit rating. Because that has a big influence that nobody can answer your question. If you've got $1 million coming back in, it's whose guess on what the lender, you're gonna charge you.
The lender
because
can-
you could go down to a B. I mean, look at our own government. Our own government has dropped their high
Well,
rate.
you're gonna go up for a refinance. Right now, it could be a B. Whenever we're ready for this refinance, it could be an A, and we can actually improve it. But as for right now, there's nothing that we can do to say that we're gonna be a triple A, when we go to get the refinance, I mean,
This
am
is
I
the
wrong?
first, this is a step to get, to ensure that when we go out for that debt, that
That we can't get better.
or that we can maintain.
Would it be wise then to make a conservative assumption that we would be in 2014, have our credit rating lowered, assuming the credit rating was lowered, that our rating would be a B? What would the debt service be on the refinance of the event center? And then begin to plan on an arbitrary number. What I am uncomfortable in doing, Andy or Eric, is planning that it's gonna happen and it's not gonna affect us. We have to plan that it's going to affect us. And if the actions that we take in the next 2 years prevent it from affecting us, we're gonna be in a lot better shape. Or if the actions that we take in the next 2 years take us from a B to an A to a double A, we're gonna be in a lot better shape. But if we don't plan for it, and in 2 years we're a B and it's this cost, what do we do then? The point that I'm trying to make is not what is it gonna cost to refinance it, is that must be included in our financial planning over the next 2 years. We have to be prepared for those costs, just like we have to be prepared for costs of wastewater plant improvements, just like we need to be prepared for other infrastructure pieces in here. That, because it was cited by the audit, okay, I think it is critical that we address that issue in our plan. Maybe not to the exact dollar and cent, but address that issue in the plan.
One of the things that I'll inform the committee, and if I need to get it spelled out by the financial advisor, he says that it takes a tremendous drop it on the ball, for lack of better words, on the city for credit rating to drop. Because he says you've got an A- with a stable outlook. If they review your finances and they see that you've got a plan and action that you're doing, they'll leave you at an A- with a concern maybe, but your rating will be an A-.
Okay.
Specifically, it takes a lengthy process for your credit rating to be lowered.
Then let's
and what-
make the assumption that we're gonna be an A-. I'm okay with that, okay? And we refinance this debt. What is going to be the debt service on that debt in 2016? And then we can begin to look at the 4A to say, in 2016, are they gonna be in a position to pay that debt? And then if they're not, we need to be planning.
Sure.
That's all I'm getting.
Okay, and the point's taken, because of course what he was stating in there was that the refinancing was done as such that the Bank of America loan will be paid off, because that's $100,000 payment that you made, so that would have to be added. So we'd have to look at the figures of sales tax collection right now, the debt minus that, plus whatever they're looking at. And I think those figures will be something that we can get the committee pretty quick on that, and to be
And
able
they can
to.
make assumptions, and they can make several for us. They can do
And-
10, they can do 20 years, 25, 30 at different interest rates with those, and
Yeah, and
give us an idea.
if we just look at what's gonna be appropriate for that facility, you know, so that, you know, be it a 10-year deal, or be it a 15-year deal, or hell, be it a 50-year. I don't know what the appropriate piece is. Again, what I'm uncomfortable is saying, okay, it's gonna be okay, let's just go down this way.
We'll get some figures and that can be obtained now that he's got the bulk of it and he knows what we've got.
And
to
we
We
specifically
know what
address
we're
it.
looking at as far as rating, not taking the assumption that it's gonna be lower, we'll just stay with where we are. and
I'm
make
okay
some-
with his piece in there, that makes decent sense. Andy, I would recommend, and open it up for committee piece, when we talk about goals, and when we talk about how we're gonna get there, and we're gonna talk about how are we going to measure our success. Let's look at, okay, the major areas that were identified by the auditor. Monitoring. Okay, budget process. Okay, because, and the reason I bring up budget process, and we've talked about the zero-based budgeting, is that a forward-based budgeting process will determine the appropriate tax rate. And that was an issue brought up by the auditor. Okay, the third piece that I would put in here that we have to do is debt service. Okay, the fourth would be the utility rates, the rate study obviously addressed by the auditor. But the last piece, not addressed by the auditor, but addressed by, in your presentation from the city of Soxdale, is that we can't ignore the current infrastructure needs of our city. Okay? And so that when we address those 6 things, you know, many things would be repeated, having an impact on monitoring, or would have an impact on infrastructure, et cetera. But specifically, where do we want to be as it relates to monitoring? Where do we want to be as far as debt service, et cetera? Then our plan can take that next step to say, okay, how are we going to accomplish this for monitoring, for debt service, et cetera? And then what are the measuring metrics under those? That would just be my recommendation, unless somebody from the committee's got something different. That way we're addressing the auditor's primary concerns and putting them in a similar format.
Need to get your spell checker working.
Recommendation?
Recommendations, everyone on the phone.
Yeah.
Given the hour, and
Who got this and when did they get it, as far as the city?
That's,
Is there a date here that says October 7th of 2010?
That was,
Is that when,
that was
it-
part of when the debt was issued
and this document was made available to whom?
to the entire,
everywhere.
yeah.
To the city council and everybody else in the world around
When that
Floresville?
debt was refinanced, all of that was part of the package.
that was when that's when they got their rating, so once that's done, that's out there for any.
Was it 2010? And I had like a Bohemian Outlook or something.
Well, and that, when he read, there are some.
It's a 2 years.
It does say there was.
Yeah,
it
it's
has-
This was the first month in FY 11,
And
But
was
that's
money
not
for
what that's for,
other
that's for
things
hospital.
besides just the civic
but
center?
the words that are in here, not
No,
October
just the center itself.
When I read the
in
bond,
the
it was
audit,
like,
that
you take your money and there would be different things with it, not
No,
just
not-
the.
Well, yes,
Specifically,
they
that
would be.
refinancing was just
Yes,
for the
because
center.
that would get,
What I'm saying is, this document is the first month of FY 11. That's last year included from September to 11, 30th
That
of
is
September
still-
11.
that is, because that's Standard & Poor's rating of us that happened in 10. It didn't change after that.
But what I'm saying, there's words in here that are replicated in the audit that we got last May.
Yeah.
The column, because that's it.
So in other words, nothing has changed.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's my
specifically
point.
that it's been, several years of deficits in 2007 and.
So what was supposed to have happened didn't happen. Right, several,
Nobody used that report to stop what happened
yes,
between
Correct.
30 September
to help the
and,
outlook.
or October the 1st of 2010 till 30 September 2011.
Given the time, and no offense to Ms. Fagan, but certainly up to the committee, would encourage that we need to meet again as soon as possible, and that's going to be up to staff. I would encourage the city manager that to facilitate meetings, documents like this, actually all documents, be provided to the committee members before the meetings so that they can review them. Would next Monday be enough time to have some additions to this skeleton document to review by the committee?
What, specifically, the points brought on by the committee was to look at the goals on monitoring, budget process, debt service rate study, and infrastructure. What else? To contact the financial advisor in regards to the refinancing and what we're looking at, dollar figures as a total by then.
Yeah, and maybe we can get some of the estimates as to where we're gonna be with the 4A sales tax dollars. You know, the 4A sales tax is gonna be here, their debt service from the Bank of America is gonna be gone. Based on past performance, this is where we expect their revenues to be. So this will be the delta, if any, so that we can begin to project on that. As we look at our plan, I think we need to just tweak the format as to where we are to those categories, and then begin to look at how we're gonna get there and then how we're gonna measure.
Can I just real quick explain what this is when you read it?
Please.
All this is a beginning process of what I'm going to consider the audit committee. Number 3 says, receive the report of the internal auditor and present the report to city council, which is based on the audit, okay? I was not here for the old audit, I've only became here, the year that just ended has actually not been audited, completed, and there's no report for me to give, but what I did try to go back to is their audit comments, put some, and there's not everything that's happened, because it's a lot of things that have been occurring, and I'm adding as I go along, I'm like, oh, what about that? But basically, I put city staff underneath the auditor's comment and their response, and what city staff has either done, or is working on, or, you know, working, or we will be doing in the future on those comments, which is what number 3 in my professional opinion on the audit committee, that's what I'm usually would be doing, is the audit comes to y'all, we come and we give you a report of the audit, and anything that needs to be discussed and recommendations to council. So,
Could you please schedule, we're on the same page that next Monday, we will have an audit committee meeting.
Okay, what time
If
do
that's
you want?
okay, that way we can make sure that we have a date and we know that. What I'm waiting, in addition, was, that the city manager's clinic that I was at, I was able to spend some time with those city managers that are in the same predicament, in neighboring cities and a little further north, that are supposed to get me some documents, on their, planning also. I can present those as soon as I get them, or forward them as soon as I get them.
You know, I would suspect that if we can get as much of this documentation out electronically so that the members can review it, we can come with specific questions, we can keep these meetings brief as well as productive for city staff so that we can recommend changes to that or recommend enhancements to what's been provided and then move on. But I think if we are going to shoot for a final document to be approved by the 28th of March, well, it's going to take a weekly meeting between now and then to get here.
I'd like to mention that on the turnaround that from Fort Stockton, like settle down on collections of, gas and water and so forth like that. And, I mean, that's worth looking at, it's not talking about millions of dollars, but, maybe a little sloppy collection.
We're talking like going out, get a collection agency to help with past due,
I don't think we
which,
need a collection agency, we need some people like me that is willing to give their time and effort to collect.
that's where you know, probably gonna have to run into some confidentiality and going through.
Specifically, what it's stating on there is addressing the issues
We haven't gained anything to start with new people.
Turn people
They
service
actually
off.
are able to
Yes.
charge them.
of continuously having the same people that don't pay over and over and letting that go, so. and I
Yeah, you
think
just take the lieutenant with you.
We
You get anything,
actually-
turn paid in.
We started that project where we started looking at past debt and people that owed and being in multiple names and that kind of thing. It's definitely a project that we're working on. Looking at the judge, is looking at a fee schedule to do,
And get businesses,
unclaimed.
get people, and
yeah, I mean, we,
they're paid.
yeah, I mean, there's some issues out there. One of the things she was talking about, a collections agency, you can get into a contract with them, and they collect the amount that you're being owed, and then they add a percentage on top of it, and that's how they get paid. So we get our amount, and yet we don't have to pay them, but they do the paperwork for us, and so it's something that we definitely could look at as being an option to bring some more money in.
I agree with Ms. Conley that that's an issue of, you know what, they're repeat offenders and that can happen and those things need to be addressed and no matter who they are.
Okay, with
Okay.
that, 6 PM on March 4th, here, City Hall, 6 PM.
I'll post the agenda on Friday, March 4th. And with that, do we just want a contingency of what was on this one minus the directive?
How do you want to,
City
yeah, we need
manager's
to see about,
plan.
Let's rename it, Audit Committee recommendation.
Okay,
And discussion, possible action, so that if we've got a good introduction, we've got a good format for it, we can get that part approved and slowly get this whole document approved, you know, and really identify what questions we have. If anybody has any other suggestions for the agenda, if you would submit them through me, I would appreciate it. And then I will get with Ms. Pollock to ensure that it's on the agenda.
okay, 'cause, yeah, as long as we have it by 4 o'clock on Friday, so that we can get it posted timely, if everybody can get everything in.
Yes, ma'am. With that, with no other comments, it's 8:34 PM. Close this meeting in the office.